As summer comes to an end, so does commit season, which means the fall begins, and that takes us right into flip season, not too far away. In this video, I want to take a look at a few big names that have informed On3's Chad Simmons that they plan on taking visits. But they plan on taking visits to programs they are not committed to. So we got to talk about that. But before we do, hit subscribe to the On3 Recruit channel, the best recruiting channel on all of YouTube. We're going to get it popping all season long. Make sure you guys are subscribed. All right, let's bring in the great Chad Simmons. Here's who's taking visits elsewhere. You've already confirmed a bunch of, actually all of these names. DJ Picket, he tells you he's going to be in the Swamp this weekend to start the year. Where else will DJ Picket visit most likely?
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to start with the teams he sees play on Saturday. I think obviously he'll be at Florida. I think this weekend. I think he'll be at Miami at some point. He has family ties there. His cousin playing his freshman year, Booker Pickett, too, at Miami this season. Obviously, Oregon has not given up. They were big competition for LSU. I think it'd end up at all three of those schools, at some point this season for games. Obviously, LSU. Committed there. They're the team to beat. Other schools, when you have a talent like DJ Pickett, a 5-star that can play anywhere in the secondary, an elite talent, they're not going to give up until he kind of closes that door, and he has not completely shut that door just yet.
Up next, we're talking Duce Knight. Chad, we've had him on Flip Watch. It seems like the entire month of August. You've confirmed with Duce Knight that he is going to take a visit to open the year. Where is he going?
He's going to Auburn. That's the plan. Obviously, he's been a guy that stayed pretty quiet, with his recruitment, really most of the summer. Obviously took a visit to Auburn for Big Cat weekend, and, Ole Miss is still working there, and they'll try to get him on campus at some point. But we kind of wait and see what happens. He goes into this visit still committed to Notre Dame, and the buzz has been around really anyone but Notre Dame. It's been Ole Miss or Auburn, mainly Auburn, the last month and a half, and that they really have some confidence they can flip him there. Will it be this weekend that it comes out of the visit committed or flipped to Auburn? Notre Dame's trying all they can, as hard as they can, to kind of keep him in this class, get him into the season, give them a chance to impress him, win some games, get him back on campus, hopefully. But right now, the buzz is around Auburn. We'll have him on campus this weekend.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters how hard that Notre Dame staff tries. It just seems imminent that Duce Knight is going to flip his commitment, but he hasn't yet. All right, Julian Lewis up next. The USC QB commitment from Carrollton, Georgia. What are you hearing on him in terms of where he could visit this fall?
There's still talk about, obviously Indiana and Colorado being the two right now that are still working to get him on campus for a game and just kind of back more FaceTime. I think there's still some confidence at USC that he kind of stays and remains in this class, as Steve has reported on multiple times in recent weeks, on his show. And I still kind of feel the same way that USC is in a good spot to kind of retain and keep Juju in this class. But Indiana and Colorado are two teams, probably more. I hear more about Indiana than Colorado, but both schools still have a chance to get him on campus, this fall. I don't think anything's set 100% on dates yet with Juju as of what I've heard as of this week. But I do know he's at least contemplating visits to both Boulder and Bloomington.
Yeah, I would not be surprised to see Julian Lewis in Boulder at some point this fall. Let's talk about 5-star corner Naeem Offord. There's been some smoke throughout the summer about both Alabama and Auburn, the in-state programs. Naeem Offord committed to Ohio State. What are you hearing on Offord and his visit plans for this fall?
Obviously, Josh, both in-state programs, Bama and Auburn, would love to keep the Birmingham talent, at home in their state. I think the one school you have to watch if you're Ohio State right now is Auburn. You can never count Alabama out. They're Alabama. They have a history. He knows some coaches there, some players there. Saw one of his teammates sign with the Tide in 2024. Obviously connections are there. But he keeps going back to Auburn. He talks to Auburn more. There's more confidence at Auburn than Alabama about their chance to flip Offord from Ohio State. I think Auburn's just trying to play the long game, just kind of keep getting him back on campus, getting him around the class they're putting together here in 2025. Obviously his dad's from Ohio. He has family still in the state of Ohio. They still feel good about Ohio State, feels good about keeping him in this class. And I would
Hmm.
still lean towards, him staying with Ohio State. But let's follow
Yeah.
these visits and see what happens this season. Auburn, for me, is the biggest threat to Ohio State.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. All right, 5-star wide receiver Caleb Cunningham. We got a couple wide receivers here that we're going to close it out with that are taking visits, but Caleb Cunningham committed to Alabama. It's solid, but Caleb Cunningham is going to take visits. And Chad, we know one thing: Caleb Cunningham can get impressed on some of these campus visits.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's one of my favorite guys, I'll say it, to cover in this class because of just how transparent he is. I mean, he wears his heart on his sleeve. He speaks what he feels. He doesn't try to hide his emotions. And like you said, he kind of get caught up in these visit highs and come out saying this team leads or whatnot. But obviously, Bama, hit the grand slam on the official visit
Mm-hmm.
back in June. That's what landed him in Tuscaloosa, getting his commitment back in July. And Bama still, I think, has to feel good about where they're at. They're the team that is on top of his list. They're the team that others are chasing, but others are chasing hard, and they're going to stay in pursuit until he puts the pen to the paper on December 4th. And I think Ole Miss will get him on campus this weekend is right now the biggest threat to Alabama. Now, I'll say this. We'll go to Ole Miss this weekend, then Bama next weekend, and Bama back at the end of September for the Georgia game. So Bama will get him back on campus multiple times this season. But he was at Ole Miss for Juice Fest 24 in July. He'll be back this weekend. He plans to take an official visit to Ole Miss at some point later this year as well. So, look, Ole Miss is a threat. They're not giving up. They're very much in play. Mississippi State will get him back on campus at least once, maybe
Mm-hmm.
twice this fall. He mentioned LSU potentially getting him on campus for a game this fall as well. But right now, he's committed to Bama. He feels good about that. But Ole Miss is coming strong in this race.
All right. Now, Dallas Wilson, he's from the Tampa Bay area, but he's been committed to Oregon almost a year and a half now. You spoke to Dallas Wilson this week, and he's got a couple visits on tap that are not to Eugene.
Yeah, I mean, he's at Florida this weekend and mentioned that his words were likely taking OV to Florida at some point this year as well. He plans to get back to Miami at some point, and he's talked about taking an official visit to Florida State that Thanksgiving weekend late in November, the week before signing day as well. Look, he's mentioned to me all four in-state schools are still in the mix: Florida, Florida State, Miami, UCF. I look right now at the big three: Florida, Florida State, and Miami, bigger threats to Oregon than UCF right now. Look, Florida is recruiting him as hard as anyone. He told me they're in contact, on a regular basis, and he's not a big guy that spends a lot of time on the phones and texting and things like that with coaches, but he has a pretty strong dialogue with Billy Gonzalez at Florida.
Mm-hmm.
He'll be there this weekend. He was supposed to take the OB to Florida in the summer in June. He went to Miami instead, and that could end up being a big thing for Florida. If they was to win this game this weekend and kind of set the tone for the season, then get him back for a late official visit, October, November, whenever that happens, that could be big for the University of Florida. So, look, Oregon, they feel good about keeping him in this class and do whatever it takes to kind of, make him happy and keep him feeling good about his commitment. And they should have a big year also in the Big Ten. But look, Oregon's all the way across the country. If Miami plays well, if Florida plays well, if Florida State, rebounds off that tech loss in Ireland and plays well, they can make it tough for him to leave and go all the way across the country to Oregon. And that's what they all want to do in the coming months.
All right. Now, CJ Wiley shocked the entire country when he chose FSU over LSU and Georgia back in July. But CJ Wiley, he's on this list for a reason. You've talked to him. Were you hearing he's going to end up visiting this fall?
Yeah, I think he'll be in Athens at some point. He's made that pretty clear. Look, he said it's close to home, easy to get to, less than an hour away. I think I've heard the Auburn game could be one he ends up at Georgia at. He stayed in contact with James Coley, Mike Bobo. He knows numerous commits in this class at Georgia. Obviously, it's an in-state school. Florida State did not help themselves with that performance in Ireland last week in the kickoff for week 0. They'll obviously have to rebound and kind of show him what they're doing, the plan they have long-term for him at Florida State. But look, he's an LSU legacy as well. Wouldn't surprise me if he ends up back at LSU at some point this season. But Georgia's the one I hear more about than LSU right now, being the biggest competition for Florida State. But I would not be surprised at all if he goes back to Athens and Baton Rouge at some point this fall.
Man, it's going to be an exciting season. You guys talked to Chad and I. Who do you think is sticking? Who do you think is flipping? Also, are there some names on here that we should have had that we didn't hit on? Let us know. Comment section below. Well, you've made it to the end of today's video, but there's hundreds more videos on the On3 Recruits channel for you to check out. And also, while you're here, hit subscribe.